go, Clark? Ready to go, Jimmy. We're ready to go.
Now today is a very, very windy day. So when it's windy like this, a lot of the wildlife, they kind of like to stay tucked up inside the bushes and the grass. So we're going to draw our pen to see what kind of wildlife we can find today. Also, I will try and keep the boat still as best as I can when we do see something. It's very windy, so it's kind of hard to keep the boat still. This boat is an airboat, and airboats, the way they work is we got two engines on the back of this boat. We got two 1972 Cadillac engines. The 500 series. These engines have 350 horsepower each, so we have a combined of 700 horsepower on this boat. Now that's a lot of power to push us around. Unfortunately, with these boats, these are airboats, so the way they work is there's airplane propellers attached to these engines, and that's what pushes us across the Everglades. It's the wind that goes behind us. Our boat is a flat-bottom boat, so we have no propellers underneath. It allows us to go in water up to 4 to 6 inches deep. Now, this basically means for us is we have no brakes and we have no reverse, so from time to time I will try and keep the boat still as best as I can. We have a speed trail. Now these speed trails allows us to go as fast as we can to get you guys deeper into the Everglades. So this is the time you want to buckle up your seatbelt. I know we don't have any seatbelts on this boat, so don't worry, don't look for them. All you have to do is you hold on really tight to your loved one. Now, if you don't love them, this is the best time you can push them off the boat, leave them behind, you'll never see them again. So here we go, hold on tight. you're in a canal because they're nice and straight. Now these canals, they were built in the early 1900s by the Army Corps of Engineers. Now the sole purpose of these canals was to help drain the Everglades. They wanted to drain the Everglades down to make some dry land for farmland and also to put houses upon. They kind of realized they messed up the Everglades, so they're in the process of knocking down some of these levees, filling in some of the canals to get the Everglades to get its natural flow back. One of the largest projects they're working on is down on Highway 41, also known as Tammy Trail. What they're doing with those is they're actually building a new road right next to it on pylons, basically making it into a very large bridge. Once it's completed, they're going to knock down the old one so the water can flow freely underneath the new highway. Other projects is all the old sugarcane fields. They're burning the sugarcane down, digging all that mud out because there are chemicals in it, so they're digging it all out with big giant trucks. And then what they're going to do is they plant a bunch of cattails in there for trying to absorb all the other bad nutrients out of it, and then they're going to flood it out and turn it into the Everglades. These islands are like on this one here on our left-hand side. These islands were used by a group of guys called Gladesmen back in the late 1800s, early 1900s. Now Gladesmen, they would come out in the Everglades, they would spend months and months at a time out here. Now what they're doing out here is they're hunting animals such as alligators, deer, raccoons, otters. They would eat the meat, but then they would preserve the hide, bring it back into town and sell the hides, and that's the way they made their money with the skin traders. Now, the way they got around the Everglades was they used boats called glade skiffs. Glade skiffs were flat-bottom boats, usually made out of plywood or tin. The way they propelled themselves across the Everglades, they stood up in these boats, used long poles, and pushed themselves across the Everglades. You couldn't use an outboard motor out here because the water is always too shallow, sometimes 4 inches deep. So you had to push yourself across the Everglades that way. They learned it from the Seminole Indians down here. Now these guys here, they also had a brilliant idea back in the 1920s. They would find these islands out in the middle of nowhere, and they would put stills on these islands and make themselves some moonshine. And I heard they had the best tasting moonshine around. They used corn mash and sweet water of the Everglades. On the left-hand side, this island is called Vulture Island. Now you can still see a few vultures up in the trees, and you see one bird, white bird on the shoreline right there, which is called a white ibis. Now the vultures that we see here, these are called black vultures. Well, there's 2 types of vultures that live here in Florida. You got the black vultures and the turkey vultures. Turkey vultures have a red head and a red neck. Black vultures are all black. Now vultures are very important animals in our ecosystem. Here in Florida, or even in your hometowns if you have vultures. What they do is they're nature's cleanup crew. Basically anything that dies, these guys will make sure it gets all cleaned up. And it's definitely a dirty job and someone's got to do it, and I'm sure glad it's vultures that are doing it because they do a very fine job at what they do. So anytime you see a vulture, you should say, "Hey vulture, thank you for keeping our area nice and clean." Not many people give vultures a pat on the back. give them a nice verbal pat on the back. Don't actually pat them on the back, because if you do out your ride and they turn around and put a big giant hole in your arm. So just give them a verbal compliment and pat on the back. Now that trail that you see there going up and down the island, that is not man-made. That's actually made by the vultures. Every night they go down to get themselves something to drink. Most people think vultures are dirty animals, but they're really not. Each vulture will go down, get themselves something to drink, and then what they'll do is they'll take a bath. Each vulture will come down, take a bath, and you can always tell which vulture hasn't taken a bath. It's usually the one that's all by himself and no other vultures want to hang out with him. And that's the way you know which one hasn't taken a bath in a few days. Our speed trail right on our left-hand side. I'm going to use this speed trail to get you guys even deeper into the Everglades. Now this one's a short trail, but it's got a couple of nice turns, and also the wind is kind of almost to our back, so it kind of helps us get a little bit faster down this trail. Folks, before I go, something just popped up. Look directly at that white ibis. Okay, look directly in front of that white ibis. You see that little rock or log sticking out of that water? You guys remember, that wasn't there just a second ago. That is an alligator. He is sneaking up on that white ibis. This alligator here, the only time I ever seen him, I've seen him a few times, it's usually at dusk. And what he does is he hides right in that spot, because he knows that's where the vultures like to take their baths. He waits for the vulture, and then he grabs a hold of that vulture, and that's what he has for dinner. Turn the boat around for everybody on the right-hand side. Hopefully he'll stay there.